this is Animat, and welcome back to the Muppet Vlog. Now this time we're going to be looking into the 23rd episode of Season 4 of The Muppet Show, which features Carol Channing. Now, for those of you who may not immediately recognize Carol Channing, she is actually known to be a very prominent actress, singer, and comedian. But on top of that, she is very beloved both on stage and on screen. On Broadway, she is an absolute darling, where she actually won her first Tony Award in the 1964 production of Hello, Dolly. It wouldn't be until decades later where she would actually get another Tony Award for a Lifetime Achievement Award. And then on screen, she actually did receive an Oscar and Golden Globe nomination for her performance in Thoroughly Modern Millie. But also, one thing that people may immediately recognize Carol Channing is actually with this very distinctive voice that is incomparable. Like, once you hear it, you know for a fact that it's Carol Channing, where she actually used it in numerous of animated projects. Some of these actually include Happily Ever After, Thumbelina, The Magic School Bus, Family Guy, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, and many more. Now, going into the episode that she appeared in, I could see what they were trying to do. It was definitely a good episode in itself, and it was definitely fun to watch. But I do feel like they could have done a lot more with it. Because the thing is, there is a story behind to this episode in particular, or what's going on backstage, and that is that Miss Piggy actually got these new pair of shoes, and Kermit absolutely loves them. And the biggest problem, though, like what seems to be like the big conflict for this entire story, is that these shoes are way too small for Miss Piggy. And I guess she described it best, where basically her frog loves them, but her feet hate them. So it's mostly Miss Piggy trying to figure out how can she work around with these like little shoes that are giving so much pain to Miss Piggy. And there are a few sketches that do work around that. Like, there are a couple, including like one that actually resulted in a really good punchline. Like there was some stuff going on backstage where Miss Piggy was trying on the shoes, and then like Floyd would announce the next number, well, to Miss Piggy, saying that it's called Your Feet's Too Big, and that was actually pretty funny. And then there was another one where it's a Pigs in Space bit, where apparently Link and Dr. Julius Strangepork were suddenly trapped in this entire force field where they can't get out, but Miss Piggy is not playing along because her shoes are way too tight. And this actually makes it the first ever crossover between Pigs in Space and Veterinarian's Hospital, where they were trying to help Miss Piggy out with her feet. And, yeah, you know, that little bit right there is actually cute. It's actually fun, you know, and enjoyable to watch, especially with how Miss Piggy is pretty much feeling throughout this whole thing. But you do get a few other sketches outside of that. Like, when you do look at the Your Feet's Too Big bit, like, yeah, it's more of a corny song that's more like anti-foot fetish, because the song actually talks about how there's this one guy who hates a girl because apparently her feet is too big. And then there's another one where it's the Swedish Chef, where he was doing some meat loafers, and it started out as a bit of a dumb pun where the Swedish Chef was just putting just a bunch of meat onto a shoe. But then it actually does get better once there's this guy who came in and asked for the shoe back from the Swedish Chef. It's like, it started out as a dumb pun, but I do appreciate it because it actually has a great recovery and it does make it funny again. But then other than that, you also get the performances by Carol Channing, and there really isn't a lot. And that's probably one of the big things that I am a little bit disappointed about this episode, is that I do feel like they didn't really use Carol Channing as much as they could. Like, they didn't really have Carol Channing as prominent in this episode, where like basically the whole focus is more about Miss Piggy's shoes more so than Carol Channing. Like, whenever she would appear, they're definitely fantastic. She was definitely lovable in there. Like, it actually starts out with an opening number where Carol Channing and a bunch of big-eyed Muppets would sing in a medley of songs based on eyes, where she would actually sing songs like Jeepers Creepers, I Like You Very Much, and Then Their Eyes. And then there's another bit, which is like a little sketch where Carol Channing played this old silent film star, and like we mostly look into her career of how she didn't really go well when the talkies came in, where she was known as Shishin. So yeah, the sketch is self-explanatory right there. But then there was only one other time where like it does connect Carol Channing and Miss Piggy's shoe story, where Carol is basically trying to figure out a solution, and her idea, like, to help out with Miss Piggy's shoes was to bring in one of the giant monster Muppets and pretty much tell the monster to go wear these shoes and run around the block a few times. And after that, basically what ends up happening, like, as the grand finale, they just end off, like, scrapping the entire shoe story, and they, like, Carol Channing and Miss Piggy would sing a song called Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, where the entire motif is all Victorian era style, and like you just see Carol Channing and Miss Piggy just changing themselves in order to put in a lot more diamonds onto them. And that's pretty much it. So like with the overall structure of the story, it just ends off with just a weak little joke, and like they just end off scrapping with it. And I guess that's kind of my issue with how the story is pretty much handled, where I get that like the whole plot of Miss Piggy's shoes are too small is that, like, you know, like it's a cute little concept that they can play around more for the jokes, but still, like, I don't really feel like it's strong enough to really go and make it an entire story, especially if they would end off just capping it all off with a little joke, and that's pretty much it. And so overall with this episode, I'm not saying that it's bad. This is still an enjoyable, good episode. Carol Channing is definitely fantastic. There are a lot of funny bits in here. Some of the sketches are enjoyable. So it was definitely a lot of fun to go and check out. But my problem is that this is the kind of episode where it seriously could have gotten a lot more potential. The story is a little bit weak just by focusing on Miss Piggy's shoes, and I really do wish that they could have used Carol Channing a lot more. Like make this episode be dedicated a lot more around the fact that Carol Channing is a special guest star, more so than just, well, here's a problem with Miss Piggy's shoes. So it's one of those episodes where it's good, it's great, it's a lot of fun to watch, but it really could have been a lot better. Good, but not great. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this episode of the Muppet Vlog, so I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see if the shoe will fit a lot better onto the next episode, but we will only know until next time, so see you later, dudes!